Hi, welcome to Monday Motivation. We're in our fourth segment talking about sleep. Last time we talked about chronotype and how important it is to recognize our biology, whether we're a morning lark, a night owl, or somewhere in between. And honoring that is going to really impact our health and wellness as we get better sleep. This time we're going to talk about a neglected topic, and that's sleep in relation to diet. So diet, we try hard to control our cravings. We put nutritional food into our bodies, but did you know that that can be compromised by a lack of sleep? So let's talk about that a little bit. One study showed that those who had less than 6 hours of sleep, the 70% of the weight that they lost was lean muscle, not fat. Why would the body do that? Why would it give up the muscle? Well, fat is a highly energy-rich substance. When we are underslept, sleep deprived, then our body will deliberately hoard the fat and not want to give it up. And it will start to metabolize the muscle, which is protein. So when we're not getting sufficient sleep and dieting, we're actually losing what we want to keep, that muscle. And we're holding on to what we're wanting to lose, the fat. So again, be mindful of all that hard work that you're doing, controlling your cravings, managing what you put into your body and your nutrition, because if you're not getting sufficient sleep, you're actually compromising your efforts during the day by neglecting what you do at night. So get the sufficient sleep. Now, this topic of sleep and diet, it's no way complete what I'm presenting. It's very brief, and I advise you to do a little bit more research on how the brain and hormones affect your body, but we're going to just touch on it briefly. First of all, the brain is affected by sleep by one deep part of the brain called the amygdala, and this is the emotional center, emotional part of the brain that regulates positive and negative emotions. Now, when we have a lack of sleep, the amygdala was shown in brain scans imagery to be lighting up much more when presented with highly desirable foods. So lack of sleep will cause the brain to crave or be attached to things that we know give us that reward or that desired taste sensation. It could be candy, it could be pizza, especially with the way that chemically our brains are hijacked by some of the salt, sugar, fat combinations that are put into foods. Let's talk about another part of the brain, which is the executive center. Some people call it board of directors, and that's a prefrontal cortex. This is the decision-making part of the brain. And to give you an illustration of how it works is, I remember working, several 12-hour night shifts in the hospital, and it seems to be the nurse's station. You go into the break room. Somewhere on the unit, there's going to be donuts. There's going to be pastry, chocolates, candy. Somebody's brought pizza, usually the fattening foods. And you go there towards the fridge and you're going to grab your healthy meal that you bought, but at your brain, that prefrontal cortex is telling you to just walk by, to resist it, that it's zero to little nutritional value, just go past it. But when we are sleep deprived, that prefrontal cortex is impaired, and we have a ramping up of the more reward center of the brain, the hedonic side of the brain, that is telling us to go for those pleasurable foods. And then we're going to be eating in unhealthy ways, and it's linked to not getting enough sleep. So just remember that the brain does affect our control, our self-control, our desires, and that, in effect, that is affected by how much sleep we are or not getting. Lack of sleep will definitely hijack our desires to eat healthier. We'll talk a little bit about two different appetite regulating hormones. The first is leptin, and leptin is the hormone that sends signals to the brain that tells us we're full, we're satisfied, satiated, we've had enough. And ghrelin is a hormone produced in our gut, and it will send signals to the brain that tells us that we have increased appetite. Now, just briefly touching on these things, I want you to know that when we are sleep deprived, it will upend the balance of these two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Sleep deprivation will tend to ramp up the ghrelin and increase our appetite during the day. Now, and that's just going to lead us down the pathway to more obesity, less control over our weight gain. So keep in mind those things that are affected by sleep, the hormones, the signals in the brain, and we really want to not compromise or upend any efforts that we're trying to do during the day by not getting enough sleep at night. We're going to continue this next week more about what we're putting into our bodies, and we're going to talk about the sensitive subject of alcohol. Caffeine, you got to love both of them, right? They're very enjoyable, but how does alcohol affect our sleep? Caffeine, we'll talk about that a little bit too. How does that affect our sleep? And then that, knowing as we do that insufficient sleep is really causing a cascade of effects in our chronic diseases, our obesity, our diabetes, and our blood pressure, cholesterol, heart, cardiovascular disease. So stick with me, and I hope that you will tune in next Monday. I'd also like to put in a plug for Matt Walker. He has excellent podcasts if you want to search him out. Read his book, Why We Sleep. This has been a wealth of information for me. I'm happy to share it with you. If you enjoyed what you learned, share it with someone else, and let them know that we're going to continue our discussion on sleep and health. Have a good Monday.